I wanted to do an update video on the Honda PAR emission system that's found on the CB1100. I believe it's on the Interceptor 800, and I think it may be on the Shadow, but this is a very, very, very common failure point on the CB1100s. And a lot of people don't realize that they have a problem. They think it's the way it's built. Or they'll read a bunch of material and realize that it's probably just a common thing. Well, that's just the way it's supposed to act. If this gasket, which looks like this, so that gasket is in between here. If this gasket fails, then it will basically sound like you have an exhaust header leak. It's very annoying because the system is so restricted on the CB1100 that as soon as you give it throttle, the amount of exhaust gases that are building up in the back pressure in the system, these will leak. And also, when the engine is hot, these have a bad tendency of leaking. Now, in one of my videos, I showed where I replaced these. These are the old ones right here, but I replaced these with brand new factory ones. And for about probably 100 or 200 miles, this had completely taken care of the noise. I had a whisper quiet engine at all throttles, throttle settings, and when the engine got up to running temperature, I had no issues. But the noise came back. And I was trying to figure out what in the world was going on. What I noticed is, measure your gap with a feeler gauge, because I noticed that the passenger side and the driver's side had different gap settings. But the gap setting here on the driver's side was completely different than on the passenger side. And for some reason, on my bike, the passenger side gap was much, much larger. You could almost fit a 0.40th gauge feeler gauge into the slot right here between the valve cover and the cylinder head. And I was getting exhaust gas leaks from the PAR O-ring area on the passenger side. So here's what I've done to fix the problem. A metal washer, a fairly thick metal washer. You can experiment with this, but basically not only does this bolt have threads, but it also has an enlarged area right here, as you can see in the picture, that fits around the O-ring that is inside the valve cover. So you take this bolt out, you put this washer on top of that gasket. At first I thought mine was gonna leak oil, but as you can tell, so far it hasn't done it. I've put roughly between, I want to say about 600 plus miles, because I'm at 900, almost 1,000 miles now. But I have put a ton of miles on this bike since doing this fix. And it has closed the gap on my valve cover, and it looks fantastic. I like how this has come about. And so by doing this, now I have had to play with it because sometimes this gasket will get a little spongy and I'll notice the gap get a little bit larger, and you'll hear just the tiniest little noise if the engine is hot. But by doing this, this allows this bolt to put more tension on that O-ring right there, push down in the valve cover gasket and close that gap. You can do it both on the driver's side and passenger side. And so as you notice, I have one of these, and right here and right here, just on the front side of the valve cover gasket, or the valve cover, you can notice that it is raised higher than my rear bolts. These are squished all the way down, and you can notice how these are higher up. That's because of these little little metal washer that I have in there. But that allows the valve cover to compress fully down on the cylinder head, no more leak.